What if the person telling you the story is the one you should trust the least? Today, we're diving into 6 books where the author looked you dead in the eyes and lied. Beautifully, deliberately, and you loved every second of it. Come on, let's go. Well, drat people, I almost forgot to tell you. If you happen to be in Bakersfield on May 9th, 2026, come by Russo's books between 10 and 2 and see Writers Row, an event hosted by the Writers of Kern. I'll be there. I'll have a booth. I'll say hi. I might even give you a little one of my cards that I printed out that turned out not quite what I wanted them to be. But if you happen to be there, come see us. Bye. Greetings, Lexophile, Bibliophiles, and Quillophiles. Before we get started today, I gotta let you know, today's episode will contain spoilers. I will be talking about how authors lie to us, but in the good way, to lead us down the wrong path in order to tell us a story that they want to, and then at that last minute, reveal that, surprise, they misled you. There are so many stories like this out there, but for today I'll be concentrating on 6, and maybe more later. It depends on what kind of aptitude I get from this. And when I say spoilers, I really do mean it, folks. If you're one of those people who cannot stand to know what happens in a story or the ending before you finish the book, then this episode might not be for you yet. Come on back when you've read. So for your information, here are the books I'll be talking about today, this time around. And if any of these are on your list that you want to read or are in the process of reading, listener beware. So the first one's going to be The Murder of Roger Ackroyd by Agatha Christie, Fight Club by Chuck Palahniuk. I always get that name wrong, but you know who it is. The Life of Pi by Jan Martel, Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn, Turn of the Screw by Henry James, and The Princess Bride by William Goldman. So I will be talking briefly about each one of those and how the author used circuitous routes or misleading conversation or whatever in order to mislead you and then kind of catch you on the other side. But before I go into that, I have some housekeeping. I'm looking at my stats for my show, and while it doesn't surprise me that I have several people listening in the United States, I'm impressed with the fact that I'm getting listeners from Vietnam, Canada, United Kingdom, Colombia, Germany, Finland, India, Australia, Ecuador, Iraq, Kenya, Latvia, Nicaragua, Pakistan, Syrian Arab Republic, Venezuela, and South Africa. I'm sure some of those are going through VPNs, and that's why they're showing up like this, but not all of them can be. But if you're one of these people, I'd love to hear from you. And I'm really surprised about Vietnam. It's the second most common place listening to my show. I'm miffed. But please, I provide all my contact information. You guys, I want to hear from people. If you're one of those people out there, let me know. Talk to me. Say hi. And that being said, let's get on with the show. So, the first one, The Murder of Roger Ackroyd. I read this one quite a while ago. This book started as a serialized story back in 1925 in the London Evening News. Many papers were doing this in the early 20th century where authors wanting to get their stuff out but not being able to publish would just send in some of their stories or some of their books to newspapers. And that was done a lot here in the United States too, and then the newspaper would either take and put the whole thing out in one shot, or they would break it up into multiple pieces as hooks to try and sell more papers, as well as get the author's information out there. But anyway, this particular book, how it fools the writer, or how it fools the reader. In this book, Christie uses the narrator's point of view as sort of like a shield, using an unreliable narrator method. Through this, you learn towards the end that everything Dr. Shepard has been telling you, while technically true, is strategically and tactically incomplete, giving you just enough so that you think you understand it, but they're holding something back. It's kind of like the old saying that, no, I didn't lie, I just omitted the truth. It's a thin line, but it's still lying. She uses the pen here to weaponize the art of omission, and she does not hide any of the facts, but she does use wordplay and skilled writing to fold them into the story and hides them within the context. What adds to the feel of betrayal is that through this, Dr. Shepard is Poirot's assistant through the entire thing, a person you would expect to be telling you the truth and in whom you have a level of trust that you've built up. And it just gets kind of dashed away from you towards the end. Why does this work? This one is simple. When you read it, you usually trust the storyteller, your narrator. And Agatha and Christie takes advantage of that and exploits your trust in her, or your trust in Shepard in this case, as the person telling you the story, turning the narrator into a co-conspirator, and you, in turn, into sort of their patsy. What you as a reader can take away from this? The narrator's reliability is an illusion. It's the catch. The twist isn't just who did it, but who told you the story? And why did you believe them? What a writer should take away from this? If you can do this, if you can use the art of illusion or of trust in your narrator to mislead your reader, then that's a skill you can run with. But don't make it habit. Don't do it all the time, because obviously you don't want to become a one-trick pony. You do not want your readers to become so used to this being your style that they expect it from you and just see another one of your books out there or stories out there and just go, oh, I know how this is going to go, so I'll just go ahead and expect it to begin with. The next book is Fight Club. Now, I still haven't seen the movie, and I'm getting ridiculed for this by several people. One of my coworkers at work looked at me the other day, seeing that I was reading this book, and said, "I still can't believe you have not seen this movie." And yeah, it's been out for a while, and I still haven't seen it. But I'm reading the book for the second time because it is a good book, and in my opinion, it kind of feels like a fever dream. I mean, if you read the book, it's just, I understand the key character is going through insomnia. He just can't sleep, and he goes for days and days on end without sleeping. And I know that feel. I mean, if you've gone for more than 2 or 3 days without sleeping, you know that kind of surreal mode your brain goes into where you just can't seem to lock on to the facts and everything seems, I don't know, just strange. So I understand that going into this. And for this one, I'm talking about the book, not the movie, as you can obviously tell. The author, like the previous author, uses the unreliable narrator trope, with Joe telling the story of Tyler, but all the time hiding the fact that Tyler is, in fact, Joe's alter ego. The author blurs the boundaries between the two by hiding them behind the pacing of the storytelling itself. If you read the book, you have Joe talking about Tyler and talking about their interactions, but you just feel like something's not right until the very end when everything starts making sense. They use the voice and the pacing to blur the boundary between the two characters until you realize what happens and the camouflage comes off. Why does it work? The storytelling and the way the author presents the information sort of trains you to accept the narrator's worldview, sort of without question. Because, again, you get to the point where you kind of feel for him. You realize that he's going through this issue with the insomnia, and he's a little bit combination punch drunk and exhausted. Through this, it kind of blurs everything together through his thoughts and the insomnia, and you fail to notice the cracks because the narrator himself seems to not notice them. You're feeling what he's feeling. What do you as a reader take away from this? Once you, as the reader, realize that Joe and Tyler are one and the same person, the book takes on a new meaning, and you find yourself rethinking everything you've read in it so far. If you've ever seen The Sixth Sense, once you get through the whole movie at the very end and realize that the lead character has been dead the entire time, and I'm sorry, it's been so many years now. If you have not seen The Sixth Sense, tough. It's a spoiler, but that's on you. But once you realize that Bruce Willis's character is dead, How many of you have gone back and rewatched the movie again and looked for all the tells? Because they're there. They're all through it. And in this book, the tells are all there. It's just you don't realize it until the end. And then you want to go back and reread it. And this is probably why I'm rereading it again, because I do want to watch the movie, so I'm reading the book again to catch up. What a writer should take away from this, same as before. Be careful making this type of storytelling a habit unless you want to make it your theme, like a one-trick pony. But if you can tell this type of story, if you can work this, you don't necessarily have to go with the fever dream pitch of the story, but is a good way to build up an audience that way. So the next one is Life of Pi. Okay, so with this one, Martel he's telling you two stories in the same book. And again, this is another one, I have not seen the movie. And so don't beat me up, okay? But I have not seen the movie. I'm told it was wonderful. But before he actually tells you the stories, he warns you. And if you read the note from the author in the beginning, he tells you in advance, in his own way, that the truth of the story is subjective, relative. Then he goes on to tell the stories. One of them might seem kind of like a Disney-esque feel to it, with a person and an animal helping one another out. Then the other, a brutal story of survival with fights, cannibalism, murder, and betrayal. And in the end, you have to decide which of the two stories you're willing to accept as the truth. But are either one of them the wrong story? That's kind of one of the things you end up asking yourself when you get to the end is, yes, there's two stories, but no matter which one is right, which one is wrong, no matter which one you choose, is one wrong and one right? But that's up to you. Why it works, readers read because they want something to take away from the material that they're reading. They want meaning. The fantasy version of the story offers a level of emotional support where the realistic version that he tells the officials at the end of the story, while more than likely the truth, does not give the reader that warm and fuzzy feeling that they may have been looking for going into it. What the reader takes away from this one, this is not a case of storyteller trying to mislead you. It's their way of giving you, the reader, a choice. Sort of like saying, do you want me to tell you the truth, or do you want me to tell you what you want to hear? It's not a case of which story is true. It's more a case of, do you want a happy ending, or the way it more than likely really happened? As a writer, what you take away from this is a masterclass, at least in my book, of trusting the reader to decide what to take away from your story. You are telling the story and giving the reader all the facts, but then providing alternative paths to the end and letting them decide which ending they want to accept. They read the story, they know both the endings and both the outcomes, but now they have the choice of looking at both and saying, nah, that one's too depressing. I'm going to go with this one right here, okay? Now, pass me my Kool-Aid. Never underestimate your readers' ability to decide what they're reading. That's one of my main points walking away from this if you're a writer. Never underestimate what your readers are going to take away from your story. Sometimes they may see something in it that you never even intended on putting in there. Then the next one, number 4, Gone Girl. How the writer fools you. You're hearing the story from two points of view, both through the eyes of Nick, the husband, then through Amy, through her diaries. Both, as the story progresses, turn out to be and fall into the unreliable narrator category. One trying to defend themselves and hide an affair, and the other trying to paint herself as more the victim than she actually is, and using that to stage her own disappearance. But the diaries are, as it turns out, a Trojan horse. The tone, the vulnerability, the emotional beats, it's all crafted to play into the reader's sympathies, to strum your heartstrings ever so gently, Now, why it works. We like the true crime feel of stories like this. We are conditioned to trust the confessional nature of stories like this. This is especially true when it's told from the point of view of a woman in danger, or a child in danger, or a marginalized group in danger. And Flynn does a masterful job of flipping that expectation and turning it into a weapon, not just against Nick, but in a way against the reader. I mean, face it, she's going after you too. You really do walk away feeling somewhat betrayed. At least I did, walking away from this book. Everybody's going to read different into it, but that's my takeaway. So, what the reader should take away from this? This book is equal parts performance art with the goal of misdirecting you, the reader, and the characters. There are moments you feel just as lost as Nick or the police while reading this. It's not just a book, but it's kind of like a ride. What the writer should take away from this? As a writer, read this book and take away from it that if you can master the art of misleading your readers, taking them places where they feel the road should be going, but only you, for now, know that it's the wrong way, and perfect the art of giving them just enough bait to keep them going, but not so much that they realize that they're being led, then you're going to score. And that reader who fell into your trap will tell others, and so on. It's kind of like when somebody catches you in a joke, and it's kind of embarrassing, but you pat yourself on the back and say, yeah, that was a good one. Okay, let's do that to someone else. It's literary deception, at least in the way of dragging your reader, down the wrong path, but doing so in such a way that they go willingly. It's an art form of its own. And this book is an example of the author doing it rightly. Next one, we're going back a little bit in time and that's The Turn of the Screw. And this one was a Victorian era work by Henry James. First, we should all take time. We should all read old stuff. Some of my favorite works are older works. Going back Hemingway, going back to stuff like Edgar Allan Poe. It's almost cliche anymore, but I would like to think that I was a big Edgar Allan Poe fan before it became so popular to be an Edgar Allan Poe fan, before it became so popular to be an Edgar Allan Poe fan. These stories are done with such eloquence that they just feel good to read. Sometimes, at least. In this one, Henry James talks about Miles and the ghosts, but he never goes far enough to tell you whether the ghosts are real. Almost every scene is written in such a way to allow for a level of duplicity or vaguity for the scene to be read and for the scene to be read possibly in two ways. Why it works? It's the ambiguity. The ambiguity in the stories, and it stays with you throughout the story. You want to resolve it. You want your mind to push you to do so. And in the end, you might end up with your own feel for how the story tells and its own end and how it ends. You could possibly say that you create your own truth with this one. What to take away from it as a reader? If left to do so, the reader is going to come up with their own ideas and conclusions based not only on what you have told them, but also on what sometimes, more importantly, you haven't told them. And that's the rub. You leave the blanks, the mind slips in and says, here, hold my beer, and tries to fill in the gaps. Why do you think more scary parts of the classic thriller movies are done in dark rooms and at night? Not the painfully obvious person sitting in the corner with a knife and the general look of bad intentions. He's just there to distract you from what you can't see behind you. What the writer should take away from this? Writers are free to play in the dark spaces of the reader's mind. That's our job. That's what we do, especially if you write this kind of stuff. That's where the fun is, and that's where you can do the most. Use the fear of what you don't see, fear of what's unknown, fear of the unexplained as your playground, and roll with that. Stephen King does that. I mean, he is the god emperor of this kind of stuff. Ask your friends or family what subtle things truly scare them. Then take that and learn from it and see what you can write that'll truly raise the hair on the back of their necks. One of my favorite quick items that I remember reading years ago is this, quote, I had just finished washing the dishes and replaced the knives into their block, accounting for all of them, and made my way to bed. As I settled down, however, I realized I had forgotten my glass of water and returned to the kitchen, poured the water, and as I turned to head back to the bed, I noticed the knife block and one knife missing. An end quote. I don't remember where I read that, and I'm sure I'm paraphrasing it, but ask yourself, Is he sure he returned all the knives to the block? Is there someone else in the house? See, that's some good stuff. Number 6, and finally, The Princess Bride. No, I'm not talking about the movie, though the movie was very good. I just wish I could get my wife and son to watch it. If you've ever seen the movie, then then I have to warn you, the book is not quite what you may have been expecting, but it is still good. I mean, really good. In fact, I'm not going to go into as much detail here as I might on some of the other stories on this list, because there's just no way I can do so and talk about the way the story plays out and do it justice without telling you to just go read the book. So go read the book. But in short, the narrator, Goldman, invents a fictional author, a fictional legal battle, and a fictional family history. But through all of this, he pretends that he's just abridging someone else's work in order to tell the story, but skipping over all the boring details that nobody ever wants to hear. And you kind of pick up on that in the movie, too. Why it works? It works because you want it to work. The writer has written a meta story within the narrative to build a story around that. And the meta portion is the joke. And it's so elaborate that the reader kind of falls into it and embraces the charm and the fun of the lie. What a reader should take out of this? Stories where you hide the story, within a truth, within a bundle of lies, are fun. And if you caught up with that, I'm impressed. You can read these types of books and walk away with either a sense that someone played a good one on you and you fell for it, or walk away bitter and lost. It all depends on what you're expecting going in and how you enjoyed the journey. What a writer should take away from this? Writers can look at this as an example of how to take a story, a narrative, and build layers into it. You have a person who, in some cases, you might see as an unreliable narrator telling a story, but he's doing it in such a way as to reframe it for the sake of another listener, one who is not you, but you're sort of eavesdropper in the situation. When you read it, look at the way the story is told and think of how you might do the same thing. Pretend you're talking to an adopted child, telling them the story of how they came to be with you, but making it fanciful and wondrous, but hiding the fact that the child was orphaned when their parents were violently killed in a folding couch accident while watching Price is Right. So that's it for now. I hope you enjoyed this one. I didn't spend as much time on it as I had wanted to, and my original list was 15 books, but I didn't want to keep you guys on this show for the potential hour that it would have gone. I try to keep these under or as close to 30 minutes as I can. But again, I'll end this with what I always say. I want to hear from you guys. And I've put out several shows, and it looks like there's a lot of listeners, but I need to know how you guys feel about the show. If you have any ideas, if you have any comments, if you want to add to the show. Also, I should have put this at the beginning, and I probably will edit it, but I'll leave it on the end as well. If you're going to be in Bakersfield on May 9th, 2026, please stop by Russo's Books between 10 and 2. I'm going to be part of something called Writer's Row, and I'm going to actually have my own booth there and get to meet people and talk to people. And that sounds kind of exciting for me. Also sounds a little bit terrifying when you consider the fact I have social anxiety, but I'm looking forward to it either way. And on that note, may your ink be cunning, your stories be crooked in all the right ways, and may every page you turn remind you that the best lies are the ones we agree to believe. Until next time, keep reading between the lines, because that's where the real stories are. Talk to you later, folks. Thank you.